Suntem recunoscători pentru... Se aude? Da? Suntem recunoscători pentru prezența noastră în această seară. Cred că avem un panel destul de interesant. Am reușit să punem la un loc un reprezentant al legislativului, un reprezentant al unei autorități de reglementare în domeniul energiei și un reprezentant al sectorului privat. Aș începe prin câteva cuvinte introductive. Astăzi au mai fost...
There have been two other panels today on energy security, and I had the feeling that it was believed that the energy security crisis that the Balkan region is faced with started along with the war in Ukraine. I will take the liberty to have a different opinion. That is to say that the Balkans were in a systemic crisis, strategic energy crisis, far before the war in Ukraine started to be waged. Why do I say this? Because regrettably in the Balkan region, the pace of reforms in the energy sector was not kept up. We still have an obsolete energy infrastructure. It is under modernization, but it's not at a very satisfactory pace. We didn't really want to find alternative routes and sources for energy, and we ended up in this situation described by some as apocalyptical, and in this so-called energy crisis. But we have to see things completely differently. I could say that the current energy crisis can and must be turned into an opportunity. This opportunity was exactly the war in Ukraine, and I could call it a wake-up call, in the sense that through the programs initiated some time before the war by the EU, more specifically the Recovery and Resilience Facility, and also the protection given by NATO, allowed us to perform reforms in the energy sector for peace and quiet. So all this at the 12th hour allows that the state in the Balkan region accelerate and take quick, specific steps on improving the energy security level. So we had to explore alternate routes, and in the context of green energy, green economy, zero emission, we eventually speak of energy efficiency storage. And I don't have to stress that the energy efficiency is the least costful source of energy. I'm very curious, and I think that the audience is curious as well, to understand what contributions can a lawmaker, a regulatory authority, and a private player can bring in improving the level of energy security. I want us to focus on levels of development and not on being reactive. We are always used to, when we are in a crisis situation, to be reactive. So subsidies to consumers, overtaxation of some companies. So I think that the audience is rather interested in finding what perspectives are seen by or envisaged by each of the panel representatives for development. I will start by giving the floor to Mr. Lóránt, the chair of the Energy Commission in the Senate of Romania. Hello. Thank you for the invitation. I'm honored to be again today here. I was invited by News Strategy Center at this very important event. With your permission, I would like to speak in general terms of some very important ideas, in my opinion, on Romania's perspective as far as the energy sector goes. Let me start by reminding you of a very important event, a decision of the European Commission made last year. In its taxonomy, the Economic Commission has recognized the nuclear as clean energy and has declared natural gas as a transition resource. Both decisions or both aspects in this taxonomy, as far as Romania is concerned, are very important. And today I was part in the presentation that also included Mr. Ghiță, the chair of the General Directorate of Hidroelectrica. And they told us what steps Hidroelectrica is taking in the near future. We know of the decisions made by the Romanian government and the decisions already voted in the Parliament of Romania and at the executive level as well that regard units 3 and 4 in Cernavodă. And they also regard small modular reactors, and also with a very well-defined location in Doicești, in Dâmbovița County. This gives us a a good perspective and safety, or rather security, in the production of electricity in Romania. The other, as I said, regards natural gas. And once again, these were declared transition resources. This is very important for Romania, especially as far as the natural gas in the Black Sea go, and not just those in the Black Sea. In Romania, there's also the 430 megawatts capacity that will be achieved from Transylvania to the balancing market, and this is a very important investment. Mintia with a 1,700 megawatts capacity, again based on natural gas, and the fertilizer production capacities where there is great need for natural gas. So with this decision, Romania has the possibility, the opportunity to be in a very good position at the EU level. Of course, if we start to tap into the natural gas source in the Black Sea, the first molecules of gas can be first brought onshore starting with 2027. This will mean that for the following 10 years, Romania will surely have the possibility to use the resources in favor of for the Romanian economy. On the overall capacities to produce electricity and natural gas, Romania is quite well off. And this is the reason why the energy crisis that impacted us as well was something else than what it meant for other countries in the EU. Albeit that our markets are interconnected, and we know that since 2021, Romania, for the energy market, it was interconnected with other 6 countries. So every kilowatt produced in Romania is noticeable from outside of Romania, and as Romania, the same thing. Romania is interconnected with other 6 states and sees every kilowatt produced. But the fact that our energy mix is favorable and well-defined, this gave us the possibility to overcome the energy crisis far better than other member states. Allow me to come back to the fact that I am a politician and I represent one of the political parties that is part of the coalition. Romania was among the first states in 2021 to be brave enough to undertake, even before the EC bringing in clear and specific measures on mitigating the effects of the energy crisis. You know very well, since the 1st of November 2021, we intervened through emergency orders that were clarified, improved, and on the 1st of November 2021, for all household consumers and non-household consumers in Romania, the prices were capped. Until 2025, this coalition, at least the Romanian government, intends to maintain these measures until the 31st of March 2025. And these measures had very clear effects on economy, because the report of the Romanian National Bank says clearly that these measures led to what we felt in the Romanian economy. We managed to stop inflation, or to actually close inflation last year at around 16.4%. Lately, we've started speaking of alternate routes for natural gas. We know that Romania, for more than 90% for natural gas needs has own production. So we depend maybe 10% on others. We have signed with Azerbaijan an agreement for 1 billion cubic meters as alternative sources. But again, I believe that Romania, also given the offshore law, because the lawmakers had that role to finalize and improve the law so as to create a win-win for both the state and the investors. With respect to these sites in the Black Sea where they will be extracting natural gas in cooperation, OMV Petrom, with Romgaz. What we do at the legal level, we aim to ease the permitting of new capacities and permitting and licensing of new capacity of producing electricity from renewables. We also consider shaping the very clear needs of an electricity consumption in Romania. So we try to identify those platforms in the region, those counties where we have industrial platforms and we have a true need of electricity.
Venim cu soluții foarte clare privind viitorul și ajutând.
Come with clear solutions on the future, for the future, with respect to new capacities to produce electricity from renewables, says the speaker. Let me also refer to the decrease in the electricity consumption. Unfortunately, this is seen in the consumption of electricity by the industry. You know, a strong economy can also be defined through its consumption of electricity from industrial platforms. In the governing platform, we've started to reindustrialize Romania. We've undertaken in the Recovery and Resilience Plan and through governmental plans such actions. Let me also refer to the Angel Salini plan that my colleague Ministry of Development, Cseke Attila, started. What we want is that in the regions that couldn't be connected to the natural gas national grid, well, to make this possible, because these programs can give a new purpose, a new meaning to those counties that, due to the lack of electricity infrastructure, couldn't develop properly, economically speaking. With the decision of the European Commission, and including nuclear energy as a clean energy, without being redundant, but per se, having said this before, well, this put Romania in a very good position, and it's up to us to take the best decisions for the future. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. ANTAL. I will now like to give the floor to Mr. Niculescu, the chair of the Romanian Energy Regulatory Authority. It's the first time that we see each other after your appointment, so congratulations, sir. Thank you, and thank you for extending the invitation. I always am glad to say yes to the invitations launched by the new Strategy Center. I know that the concern for the security in the Black Sea and Balkan regions is quite of interest. And if we take a look at history, well, the Balkans have always been restless. History taught us that this area has been hot all the time, right? So why would it be any different now? Well, we're used to working under these circumstances and to be highly performant, and to overcome all the challenges that you referred to in your opening speech. We are at the Security Forum, so obviously I have to refer to the conflict that we have at the Romanian border. It's a danger and a crisis that overlapped the pandemic, and overcoming this energetic and economic crisis, which really put the entire energy system in the region under stress, not just the national one. And it's quite a number of challenges for neighboring states, and I'm referring here to the Republic of Moldova, and I salute you, State Secretary Bogdan. There was a time when together we've tried to find solutions to all the answers that Republic of Moldova met. I can say that it is rather certain that lately the Republic of Moldova gets natural gas for the first time from the west and not the east. And this is possible due to the efforts that Romania have made for the Republic of Moldova, and the effort to integrate Moldova from an energetic perspective will not stop here. Of that I'm convinced.
Marea Neagră ne oferă foarte multe oportunități.
The Black Sea gives us many opportunities, and the previous speaker mentioned this, starting from Neptune Deep. I would add to that the new Black Sea oil and gas actions, an American company that deliver 1 billion cubic meters of natural gas, about 10% of the production starting mid-June last year. To this, in 2026, 2027, the natural gas production in the Neptune Deep will be added. Other opportunities that the Black Sea provides refer to the offshore wind power. This is an area in which Romania can really be a pioneer. This is a segment that the other countries that have access to the Black Sea haven't tapped into. That is why Romania stands the chance to become the first state with access to the Black Sea that develops a legal framework so as to regulate these activities. Ever since I was a state secretary in the Ministry of Energy, I started this procedure with the support of the experts from the World Bank. I can say that about 95% of this law is done. Soon, this draft law will be subject to public consultation. Why should we be the first in the area? Well, when companies start investing in this area, when Bulgaria will do this, and inevitably in the reconstruction process for Ukraine, this will happen there as well, the companies will not leave Romania, but rather will serve these new markets from the headquarters that they will have in Romania. There was actually a study tour in the Constanța harbor with the World Bank experts to assess the potential that the Constanța harbor can have. This can be a harbor where companies can bring production capacity installations or facilities for this type of services or even for maintenance. So it's a lot of opportunities that we have. We just have to be mindful of them and be one step ahead of neighboring countries, because we have to strengthen our position as leaders in the area. Another aspect that I would like to refer to is an agreement signed on the 17th of December in the presence of the Romanian president that speaks of a green corridor that links the Caspian Sea to the European area through Romania. A green corridor that will transport energy, mind you, two ways. So mostly renewable. And this piece of infrastructure plays the role to accommodate new production capacities in the Black Sea, also renewable. So we will use this corridor, this route to transport renewable energy so as to accommodate our investments as well. The agreement signed on the 17th of December shows exactly the importance of Romania in the area, because without Romania, this infrastructure project can't be done. And let me say that we already have countries interested to join this project, even from Bulgaria, a recent request that want to expand this infrastructure project toward Bulgaria as well. You said in the beginning, you mentioned, well, challenges. Of course, these challenges can turn into opportunities, and I personally believe that the only solution to overcome these challenges is to invest. Let me also add that investments, and I strongly believe this, the investments are a healthy solution to overcome this crisis. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair. We will now give the floor to Mr. Piotr MARCZUK from Honeywell, that, as you know, is a multinational corporation with experience in various regions, various fields. But of course, we are today interested in what this company is doing in the energy sector. And I'm sure that Mr. MARCZUK has a lot to tell us. Please, sir, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having us and me as a representative of Honeywell today during this conversation with such distinguished guests. Welcome, everyone. Yes, I represent Honeywell. Honeywell is present in Romania for around 30 years, and we are proud from the fact that the biggest, let's say, Honeywell family in Europe and in Central Eastern Europe of around 3,000 people is actually living and working here in Honeywell in Romania with engineers, with people working in marketing, sales departments, developing products and providing these products across Central Eastern Europe, across Europe and even wider. Yes, we are talking today about new energy sources, renewable energy sources in Balkan and Black Sea region. And I would like to start saying that yes, this region has substantial reserves of oil and natural gas. It is here. And despite the fact that there is a, let's say, global slow shift to renewables, these natural resources will be explored with all the kind of consequences related to environmental impact and security considerations, especially taking into account the geopolitical situation and Russian aggression on Ukraine. Recent years brought the discovery of substantial natural gas reserves by Romania, by neighboring countries, and therefore it will impact overall diversity and energy supply. And as my predecessor mentioned, EU is kind of categorizing gas as an interim, let's say, energy source. Therefore, it will have to stay with us for the foreseeable future. I would like to mention here one element which is actually connecting gas and hydrogen being the kind of at the core of renewables for the future. We have technologies in Honeywell, developing technologies which are, for example, allowing blending hydrogen into gas network. And these projects are at the early stage. There are some pilots in Europe or discussions with academic community as well as potential business partners where we can start, let's say, injecting hydrogen into gas network. So let's say allowing lower emissions, but at the same time maintaining all the let's say energy features of the fuel when it goes to the final consumer, final recipient. The topic of this panel is also about the, let's say, cooperation in the region. And I see really a huge potential in terms of cooperation around generation of renewable energy. I would like to focus on solar and wind. We should not forget also about hydroelectric power, because we know that Bulgaria, Romania, but also other Balkan countries, Albania, Bosnia and Herzegovina, or Montenegro, all of those countries have hydroelectric power plants. They contribute to overall energy mix. They also help reducing greenhouse gas emissions. When we talk about Danube River between Serbia, Romania and Bulgaria in the south, or Prut River between Romania and Moldova, there are hydroelectric potential. There is hydroelectric potential cooperation there. Although at the same time we know that with the climate changing, we see actually a decrease in terms of the energy production from these hydroelectric plants. In 2022 compared to 2021, it was around 20%. So it's quite significant amount, which has to be kind of offset by other renewable energy sources. Now, when we talk about wind, there is quite interesting development that is going on over the recent years. There are already 2 international hubs in Europe that are focusing particularly on renewable energy from wind. One is around North Sea, NSEC. It's formed by 9 countries, and they are focusing on promotion of renewable energy and boosting economic growth from that part of the economy. And I don't know whether the audience and the panelists know, but actually today there is yet another conference in Malta where there is an announcement of another international hub, this time Mediterranean hub around Mediterranean Sea, emerging and created by another 9 countries which are surrounding Mediterranean Sea. And this group of countries will be also focusing on offshore renewable energy deployment, with example of Malta, who is looking into innovative technologies, for example, forming floating renewable energy farms. So I think these two examples can really serve as a kind of learning platform for Balkan and Black Sea region, because this group of countries has all the kind of cards in hand to actually take what's best from those two other examples and formulate such a coalition here in this region. As the World Bank estimate, we see the Black Sea offshore wind kind of technical potential is almost 440 gigawatts, with 270 being like fixed bottom turbines, and the rest around 170 gigawatts of the floating technologies. Yes, so I think the potential is there, and as my counterpart said, Romania has all the arguments in hand to be the leader and initiate this cooperation with other countries. In terms of the solar, yeah, this region is also having, let's say, great natural situation to develop solar PV plants. Solar energy grew by 5% year on year, 2022 compared to 2021. By the way, wind energy grew 7%, 2022 compared to 2021. So I think both wind and solar projects can be really can be supported financially regionally, or can be also supported financially at the EU level, and the experience in those projects can be taken from the two other groups that already emerged. Last word on my side. I think two key elements have to be in place in order to kind of stimulate this international cooperation. One is technology, and I am representing the company that delivers this technology. One of the key elements that is almost always attached to wind or solar plants is something which we call battery energy storage system. These are, we have the experience already taken from Ukraine locally. Before the war, we've launched such a pilot project on BESS, battery energy storage system, small scale, 1 megawatt. But recently, this month in Vietnam, we've launched a much bigger one. Next to a 50 megawatt power plant, we launched another battery energy storage system. And second element, besides technology, which was already mentioned here also, is interconnectivity. Not only related to gas, but also to electricity. And I think Romania, in the kind of center, in the heart of Black Sea Balkan region, has done its homework in a very good way in terms of building interconnectivities and cables east-west and north-south. So I think this is the advantage that the country already has, that has to be kind of taken into account when building the future potential here.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. MARCZUK. Extremely interesting. I would now like to turn to our auditorium if there are any questions for the gentleman in the panel. There is one there? No? Atunci, dacă îmi permiteți, aș încerca să plasez discuția.
If I may, since there are no questions, I'd like to ask a question to Chairman Niculescu and to Senator ANTAL. Chairman Niculescu, you mentioned that in order to improve the level of energy security, it's key to invest. During the past few years, ever since 2016, the private sector in Romania got a lot of contradictory signals from the government and from the lawmaker. let us remember the overtaxation, overlapping for the various companies in the private sector, certain price caps for the consumers that in the end were paid by either the government or the energy producers, certain barriers that were raised and changed in the sector of renewable energy. Yes, it is key to invest, but all of these signals that have turned almost in a tradition here in Romania, in the current political security context Romania finds itself in. Can you find an optimal approach? Thank you. Thank you for the question, which is not an easy question to answer at all. How could you positively explain why we often change the legislation? But I'll try to approach this question you asked from an optimistic perspective. From 2012 to 2016, I focused on the first wave of investment in the energy sector, stimulated by the first wave of green certificates, the great boom. The biggest wind farm in Eastern Europe was placed in Constanța, in Cojalac, Fântânele, 700 megawatt installed power, just as much as, no, 600, I'm sorry, someone whispers from the audience. So just as much as one reactor in Cernavoda. Massive improvement and involvement in energy. After this wave, generous wave of investment and subsidies, the law underwent frequent changes, and it was not followed by any support scheme. Of course, the investments went down after 2015-2016 up until 2020-2021, when new funds were available. The NRRP became available, and the Energy Ministry implemented the 457 million scheme to install at least 1,500 megawatts shared equally in between various technology, half of it on solar power and half of it on wind power, a program that ended with oversubscription. So the interest was so high that we exceeded the budget 2- or 3-fold. Besides that, the funds for modernization were made available to investors, and that is a way whereby they can fund their investments. So there's a new possibility to invest. It is doubled by some law made, and on the background of overtapping, it mentions that the investments that were made available and commissioned after 2022 will not be overtaxed, and that signal is truly positive for the investments. That is a signal provided by a government that does not want to interfere in this new appetite for investment. We do not want to affect the good performance of investments, because by not taxing these new investments, they can be rolled out and be funded and commissioned. So the government has shown to be a serious partner to new investors by not taxing them additionally for the new projects to be commissioned after the beginning of April 2023, except for the additional income tax, through the two axes that I mentioned. Thank you. Chairman ANTAL. I'd like to make a brief remark here. We need to highlight once more that we were facing exceptional situations, and in exceptional situations we came with exceptional decisions. When it comes to the price capping, the additional income tax and various other taxes on the industry sector, the government and the parliament brought these measures during a full energy crisis. So that was not a situation of normalcy where the government woke up one day and said, okay, let's bring added tax to the energy sector. No. We were forced to take these measures because, to be very frank, as we've all seen, the prices got to very high levels. I would not like to get into further details about this topic. I think each government, whether we're speaking about the government of Romania or a responsible government, needs to take care of their own citizens, of the state they represent, and to the best interest of which they act. We have over 1 million energy consumers. We have 4 million of natural gas consumers. You can't come and say that, well, in the European Union, we have a free market, so we really needed the government to intervene. I always want to highlight, whenever I'm invited to speak somewhere, whether people ask me or not, I always say that the Romanian government was one of the first governments that in 2021 was brave enough to intervene to protect the domestic consumers and the SMEs. And that is highly important to mention. I wrote down 2 topics. So, first of all, the electricity and power gas distribution, a challenge for the future. Why? Before the war, and that is highly important, before the war, many people in the EU, many voices in the EU were raised speaking about distribution as something that was outdated, classical, that will cease to exist in the future. Because by turning the energy industry green, everything will happen somewhere in the cloud, everything will be digitized without having physical connections. Well, as you can see, the war proved them wrong. Electrification comes hand in hand with digitization, and we also need physical interconnection, and we'll continue to use pipes, to be very simplistic in my approach, and cables to transport electricity and natural gas. What does that mean? Well, these critical infrastructures, if you may, in the new era, were granted a highly important role, and all the EU states regard this field very carefully and treat them as high priority. However, in the spirit of having more electricity or better electricity in the future, things will be changed and different in the future. If we no longer speak about consumers or to store them, and with Chairman NICULESCU, we had some very punctual discussions about how will the future look like, just so that we might start in time to provide secondary and primary legislation and not get into blockages. Well, many companies mentioned that in certain regions of the country there are too many consumers. In terms of distributor operation, they have physical issues with the networks, but not as high or big or difficult as in the past. So the electricity is not distributed anymore to such areas because it is produced, it is generated within those regions. So this distribution in the future will have to be rethought of. And in terms of the classical distribution solutions that will continue to need, we need to rethink things at macro level. So let us focus on industrial platforms, if you will, or on the areas with big consumers where the energy will be used and consumed massively. There are, however, challenges that we need to deal with very carefully. If we don't, we can see in our region states where the investments in renewables are blocked simply because at one moment in time some wrong decisions were made. Yes, I'm a politician and I'm going to end my statement here. I'm young, I believe in innovation and in challenges for the future, but in terms of energy, I have a more classical approach in the sense that I also believe in the need for being banned generation capacities. So let us also think about new capacities to produce power through renewables or from renewables, but carefully for our own industries, for our own economies, and also have a focus on having these banned generation capacities and have that balance where we don't hinder our own economy and industry. If we build too many energy generation capacities here, and our neighbors do the same towards our left, probably we'll face the issue of no longer having whom to sell the energy we generate to. So we now have actually a bidirectional distribution channel. And we also have a question from the audience. Good evening, panelists. Thank you for your very important speeches. I have one question.
Colleague, though, and I'll ask this in English. So it seems that with renewables, in particular, we are absolutely losing the fight with the Chinese when it comes to solar. They make the machines that make the solar materials, the modules, and other countries can't compete with them in price. So we get into this position where we want to become more green, yet we have to get into the bed with Chinese to do it, and that may not be the best thing to do strategically, and that's probably an understatement. So what are companies like Honeywell doing to expand the vendor base to get in other material suppliers at a good price point that can compete with the Chinese?
Thanks for the question. Indeed, it is a challenge. I would like to kind of diplomatically shift my answer from the hardware part of this question to software part of this question, because with all of this hardware equipment, be it batteries or solar panels or turbines, there is also a software layer which is responsible for management, for efficiency, and this is where actually we at Honeywell are seeking our advantage. Historically, we were industrial automation company, yes, with majority of our workloads being focused on, let's say, old type traditional factories and manufacturing processes. More and more today and in the future, we want to become a software industrial company, which is hiring more and more engineering power, training and developing talents in the direction of industrial software engineering, and applying this software on the hardware, not necessarily built by us, because this software can work not only with Honeywell, let's say, devices, but also non-Honeywell devices, achieving some efficiency gains, which are then translated into hundreds of millions of dollars. So I know that the answer from your side could be Chinese and their, let's say, approach to software, AI, machine learning is probably outpacing us as well. That's debatable, but this is where we are going as a company. Yes, trying to decouple from the old traditional view on hardware, on hard parts, and moving into software that is managing this highly complicated machines, thus gaining advantage out of it.
Thank you very much. And are there any other questions from the, please?
Mulțumesc, Cătălin Ștefan e numele meu. Am apreciat foarte mult discuția despre infrastructura de transport.
Infrastructure. I'd like to also bring up to your attention another information. Electrical car technology. Does the Romanian state do something in this respect? Because I speak about these powering stations. There are a lot of demands of electrical cars, but we don't have places to charge them from.
Între patru ochi, o să fiu foarte sincer cu dumneavoastră.
I'll be very honest with you. Here we have a problem, and in the parliament, I don't know whether you remember, 2 years ago there was a draft law that was voted, was passed and entered into force, whereby we tried to force the distribution companies to perform connectivity works on their own expenses. The law entered into force. Most distribution companies started saying, we have lots of requests, so technically we cannot cope with this level of demand. We started debates in the parliament with the regulation authority, with the Ministry of Energy and so on. At some point, the effects of this law were mitigated. We found a middle way, and right now, if a household or non-household consumer wants to be connected faster, they can pay for it and will be reimbursed the costs within 5 years. Why this long introduction? Because unfortunately, personally, both I and my colleagues were very vocal trying to get answers from the distribution companies to explain in the past 30 years why they did not develop their energy transport distribution or energy and gas transport and distribution networks, especially for the gas, where about 35% of the population in Romania is connected to natural gas networks. The Romanian legislation speaks of energy efficiency. Energy efficiency means that a distributor, if they want to extend the network, they must prove that it is an efficient investment from an economic viewpoint. However, for this, they need, from the very beginning, a number of consumers to initiate this investment. For example, if I want to take any county in Romania and develop an area with economic potential to build their industrial parks and so on, I must have there at least the energy infrastructure in place. More specifically, the possibility to get connected to power and gas networks. If I can't, then there will be no investment in those counties, in those areas. So there is a chance investments would focus on those regions where connection to the energy infrastructure is possible and easy. Then we tried to identify why in the past no one has thought to enable certain regions by investing with a view to the future. For example, if we connect or extend the gas or natural or power network, then by extending such networks, the economic potential of the region would increase. However, major investments we have seen no major investments from distribution companies. There have been some investments, but not major investments. They only invested to support and maintain their network operational. If somewhere they had a non-household consumer with higher consumption, then they tried to strengthen or to improve the network, but only for that consumer, not for new investments. So, to the point, in certain areas, it is a problem of capacity, network capacity, which cannot cope with these electric vehicle chargers. But we should differentiate between distribution companies. Some of them are taking things seriously and are truly trying to develop. Others are still pending, they still have to work, but I do believe there are opportunities, as Mr. Niculescu mentioned, the modernization fund, European funds, and now we are looking for that option that means more European funds to have massive investments in the distribution networks. Thank you. I would like Mr. MARCZUK to add something.
The other European member countries will have to face this debate once again in, let's say, a year time or a year and a half, because we are now working at the EU level on a set of new directives: Energy Efficiency Directive, Energy Performance Building Directive, Renewable Energy Directive. And in all of those elements, you have charging station relevant provisions that have to be, let's say, implemented when it comes to residential buildings, new residential buildings, existing residential buildings, non-residential buildings, office buildings. And now, you know, this legislation is in a trilogue. So EU Commission, EU Council, EU Parliament, they are negotiating what will be the final shape and form of it. I guess within the next half a year, there will be a final shape of it. And within a year or a year and a half, there will be a need to transpose this legislation into the national legislation. And then the same, let's say, debate will start again. Is the grid ready for that? For 50% of the parking places with chargers, or only 10% with chargers? So you will definitely face this debate in the years to come.
Okay, then see you here in 2 years.
Thank you very much, sir. Mai sunt întrebări din public? Dacă nu, atunci îmi permite să declar lucrările acestui panel închise. Mulțumim publicului pentru prezență și, desigur, mulțumim membrilor panelului pentru prezență și discuțiile extrem de interesante care au avut loc. Vă mulțumesc și în continuare vă dorim o seară plăcută. Mulțumim!